81 times. That's how many times Al Sharpton's name reportedly popped up on a White House guest list. And Swiss America's chairman Craig Smith is wondering why Al Sharpton gets to meet behind closed doors, but business guys like him get locked out. Craig, I got to be honest, I think the answer is easy. I think he much more easily identifies with the Al Sharptons of the world than he does with the Craig Smiths of the world.
No doubt about that, David. And we know one thing for sure they're not doing is creating jobs, because small businesses create 70% of all the jobs coming out of recessions. You know that. And I suspect, actually, quite frankly, I was shocked to see that Al Sharpton even went to the White House, because after we elected an African-American president, quite frankly, David, I thought men like Sharpton and Jesse Jackson would be looking for jobs.
Have you ever heard of a job being created in the private sector by Al Sharpton?
Never. Quite to the contrary. I've seen a lot of jobs lost. And David, I know the nation has to be heartbroken when we hear chants like, what do we want? Dead cops. What do we want? When do we want them now? And then to see Al Sharpton totally silent until he has to say something. The same thing with de Blasio. And that's hurting employment in this country. I'm just wondering
what they talk about. I mean, 81 times, I can understand once or twice, but 81 times. And then, of course, what's really, in my eyes, reprehensible, because the guy has so many times either flouted the law or actually broken the law, in my mind, and sometimes led to terrible situations in which innocent people have died. Al Sharpton was in the White House when the president was announcing his nomination for the new Attorney General. Al Sharpton was sitting in the second row right there in the White House. I mean, he's not a symbol of justice. He's a symbol of a mob.
You're right. He's a stain on the memory of Martin Luther King, because Martin Luther King, everything he did was nonviolent. Everything that Al Sharpton does has a shred of violence. Now, I can speculate on what he may have been in there talking about, David. Maybe he was in there talking about getting a pardon on the $4.5 million worth of back taxes that he owes the federal and state governments. Maybe he was in there looking for a pardon for his 1993 conviction on failure to file his income taxes. Or maybe he was in there looking for a favor of how he's going to square the books away with some of his nonprofit organizations that have come under a lot of question. Right. We know one thing for sure. There's three musketeers, Eric Holder, Barack Obama, and Al Sharpton. And I hate to say this, David, but I said this in an editorial. They've done more to set back race relations in this nation than any other group I've ever seen in the White House. Even beyond that, though, Craig, the fact is our country, our free market system relies on the rule of law and property rights, things that Al Sharpton has shown no signs of defending. In fact, sometimes he's trying to break down some of those laws. You're absolutely right, David. Remember, people have a short memory. Freddie's Fashion Mart. I mean, they destroyed that business, a going, solid business. They destroyed it. They destroyed people's lives in Tawana Brawley's case, in the Duke lacrosse case. There's never been anything created by Al Sharpton other than commotion, chaos, and separation. And that's why he should have not been in the White House one time, no less 81 times. Now, Craig, the president has said, he's been asked about this before. First of all, he said, I have invited people from the private sector in the White House, which is true. A lot of them, by the way, are these insiders, you know, the heads of big multi-billion-dollar international corporations, not so much the small and medium-sized businesses. But then he says, I'm too busy. I'm you know, solving problems of the world. I'm putting an end to wars. But he's spending 81 times with Al Sharpton. I mean, he has time to see the private sector, doesn't he? Yeah, he sure does, David. And look, you know, knowing the business world, that it's very simple how to create jobs. You make a conducive environment for businesses to grow. The president needs to bring confidence to this nation. He needs to bring stability. We need to know where we are on foreign and domestic policies instead of just kind of shooting from the hip as this president does. And so this president has turned a deaf ear to business. He's turned a deaf ear to the private sector. And I'm just literally holding my breath, David, for 2 more years. We've got great plans. Our business is getting ready to expand huge come 2016 once we know where this nation is headed. Well, that's good news. And I think the private sector is ready to take off. It's just such a shame that it's had to be held back for so long. Craig Smith, Swiss America Trading Corp. Chairman, good to see you. Thank you very much, Craig. Appreciate it. Good to see you, David. Well, investors whooping